1946, the bell returned to service briefly, but was retired when the crack lengthened. The inscription on the bell came from the Bible and commemorated the religious and political freedoms enjoyed by residents of colonial Pennsylvania. It reads,
the Brooklyn Knitfolk podcast. My name is Jaclyn. This is episode number 49, and you can find me on Instagram, and Ravelry is at Jaclyn Salem. This is a podcast that is mostly about knitting and sewing, and then sometimes just whatever crafty things I happen to get up to. If this is your first time watching, welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I have a pretty exciting finished project to show you today that lots of you are very interested in, so I cannot wait to dive into that. And with that, I think we should just jump right into the episode, honestly, and talk about what I have been making. So I'm gonna save the backpack for later and just kind of briefly go over my knitting projects right now. There hasn't honestly been a lot of progress on my knitting projects just because the backpack took up a lot of my time, but I will show you some of the things that I am working on just to catch up anybody who has not watched before, or if you just want to see the knitting projects I am working on currently. So the first one I will show you is in my Paradise Island bag, and it is the Akiko cardigan, which is a pattern by Yoko Hata. It's been a while, I think, since I've shown this on the podcast, honestly. I don't think I've shown it for a while, but I'm knitting it out of Primrose Yarn Company in the Maple Leaf colorway. And this is a sweater that is knit in pieces, a cardigan I guess I should say. And this is the left front, I believe. Yeah, because the cable goes up and over like so. And I am challenging myself to knit this entirely on the subway or public transportation of some kind. And so far I've stuck to that, which has made it a bit of a challenge to work on because some days I get a seat on the subway and some days I don't. And even if I do get a seat on the subway, depending on which seat it is or who's sitting next to me, it's kind of like not always easy to knit, especially on a piece that is this large. Right now I'm supposed to be knitting this to about 24 inches, I believe. Those are the cats running around, sorry if you can hear that. 24 inches, so I haven't measured this in a while, but I'm hoping I'm going to be done with this piece pretty soon so that I can move on to another piece that won't be so large as I'm knitting it on the subway. But I do love how it is working up. I'm definitely alternating skeins as this is knit with hand-dyed yarn, and if you're knitting with hand-dyed yarn, you should always alternate your skeins. Even if they look the same in the skein, I have I don't know, somewhere in the realm of like 10 skeins of this yarn, and some of them look exactly the same. Like I picked 2 that look exactly the same. I'll show you the cakes actually. In the skeins and in the cakes, they look so similar. But when you knit them up, one of them is definitely lighter than the other, you can see. So the variegation, as long as you alternate the skeins, to me still looks okay, and I just love the use of the hand-dyed yarn. It's so soft. It's an MCN base, a merino cashmere nylon, and it's got just like this wonderful, ever so slight halo to it. It's very, very slight, but the definition, because of the twist in the yarn, is excellent for cable knitting. So I'll hold that up so you can see it just a little bit longer. The cable is, I forget, I think like a 10-row repeat or something. And you would think after this many times of knitting the repeat that I would have it memorized by now. I don't know what it is with this particular cable pattern for this panel right here in my brain, but I just cannot memorize this cable pattern. I don't know why, so I have to take the sheet with me everywhere I go that has the cable pattern on it, because I can never remember it. I just can't memorize it. I will say it's a nice challenge for reading your knitting, especially so if you've been knitting for a while, it's definitely easier. I wouldn't call this like a beginner project necessarily. It's not difficult, but it's easier easier and faster if you can read your knitting from row to know what to do. So I'm really loving how it is looking. I'm just ready to move on to another panel. This Progress Keeper is from, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the name? Because she makes all of my favorite, Tilting Planet. It's from Tilting Planet, and she also made this kind of glass slipper Barbie shoe thing that I love. She has my favorite Progress Keepers of any Progress Keeper maker, and every single time that I knit it on the subway, I always move up the Progress Keeper when I begin again and then add to my Instagram stories, and I have a highlights reel of every single time I work on this, so it's kind of cool to like tap through the Instagram story to see the progress like zipping along. But yes, I love it. Double seed stitch, which I wasn't aware was part of the pattern, was basically the texture of the entire garment until after I started it. So, you know, I'm a glutton for sweater knitting punishment. I seem to always choose projects that have seed stitch in them, but I just love the look. And look at these cables. Yeah, it's gorgeous. So this is definitely just going to be such a special piece when I'm finished with it. I will say I'm a little bit concerned. I haven't read ahead on the pattern yet, maybe I should. But I hope that this is not the finished edge of the cardigan. There's no buttons or toggles or anything on it because it rolls. It rolls in. And if the natural inclination is to roll in, no amount of blocking is ever going to permanently keep it from doing that. So I haven't read, like I said, have not read ahead in the pattern, but I really do hope that this is not like the finished edge of this cardigan side. Like here is going to be the same, and then whenever I knit this side, it'll be the same, because it rolls and I don't like that. And it would be a shame to have put in like all this effort into it when I could have easily just added like a garter tab or something to the edge of it to keep it from rolling in, but it would be too late to do that now. And again, that was Primrose Yarn Company in the Maple Leaf colorway. It's this gorgeous like golden chartreusey yellow green, and it has some speckles of red in it. It's a stunning yarn. This is just like a very luxurious product. By far will be the most luxurious garment that I will ever make or own to date. So if you're looking for a really high quality yarn, Primrose Yarn Company, and I think it's called the Marrakech DK. It's a DK weight sweater, by the way. I didn't say that. This is the one to get. It's luscious. The next project, again, not too much progress on it since the last time you saw it. I've maybe knit like, I don't know, 4 inches. Is my Socks for Mom. And this is the Socks on a Plain pattern by Laura Lindman. And it just has the cable detail up the side. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's my go-to sock pattern if I'm not knitting a vanilla sock. And the yarn is this beautiful Hedgehog Fibers in the Hurricane colorway. I love this. So unique from what I would normally pick for myself. My mom picked it when I went to Argyle Yarns. I just sent her a bunch of pictures. She wanted mostly blue socks. And I sent her a bunch of pictures of yarns while I was at the shop, and this is the one she picked. So again, not much progress on that. 2x2 rib, the Socks on a Plain pattern, a Fish Lips Kiss heel that is a half garter heel and then half knot, only because I couldn't stand to knit this any longer. I'll of course repeat it for the other sock, but knitting garter heels is not my jam. You think they would be easier since it's just knits the entire way, but it really is just more difficult to dig into the stitches on a gauge this dense and on needles this small. It's just not, I did not like it. All right, and that is it for my current knitting projects. So now I'm going to move on to sewing. I'll quickly talk about my Rosie dress that I've been working on fixing, and then I'll talk about the backpack. So as I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm making the Rosie dress, which is a pattern by Sew Over It. The dress is so cute. I love it. I love it so much. The problem though is that the fabric that I picked to make it with is just too heavyweight for all of the gathers that the skirt portion calls for. It just was adding so much bulk to the waist and just making me, it was not figure flattering on me at all. So what I wanted to do was figure out a way to remove all of the excess gathers and then just fit it like an A-line skirt, basically. So I didn't know if it was going to work out because of the stripes, and I wanted to make sure that the stripes would match up, and I think I've done a pretty decent job of that. So far, so good. What ended up happening, though, was that the skirt panel is made up of 4 portions. Well, actually 3 portions. One long, big piece in the front, and then a piece for the left back and a piece for the right back. And it's joined at the sides at a center seam, or a side seam, sorry, a side seam on both sides. So when I took out the when I took out the gathers and just sewed it, you know, stretching to pattern match the stripes, it ended up being where I literally could just take off the back panel on the left and the right. So this is all of the fabric I removed from it, which is good. This now would fit my waist perfectly. However, without having any gathers, I still left that center pleat in the front because that wasn't too much. And I think that's a cute detail. However, now the problem is, and it's going to be kind of difficult to show this, because the pieces are cut in such a way that they kind of like, you know, flare out on the sides, and then the back pieces are cut, you know, the opposite way, but then have a straight center seam for the zipper that's going to be up the back. This seam up the back is not straight, and to pull it together, I would lose really a lot of shape, like flowiness, to the skirt. I'm not sure if that's making a whole lot of sense, but basically because it's all one piece wrapping around my body, it's kind of, I'm thinking gonna look kind of a la pencil skirt, which is something else I don't want because it's not a shape I like on my body anyway. So now what I think I have to do is slice and dice it a little bit, take this panel, that's all now one big skirt panel. At the side seams, I will cut it and match the angle that this has already, and then take the back pieces, fit it to center back to the side seam, and then cut it on the same angle that this already was, basically. So I'm not sure if that's totally making sense the way I'm explaining it. In my head, it's all making sense. Basically, the long story short is that it's all gonna be fitted to the waist. It seems to work out fine with the stripes. I just have to like kind of stretch it into submission, or, you know, cut the pieces in a way that will make sure it aligns right. But basically I'm just taking the front panel, making it shorter, and then also making the back panels not as wide so that it fits the waist perfectly but still retains the voluminous shape that kind of makes it flowy toward the bottom. So that seems to be working. A lot of you suggested pleats. Again, I know it's not going to be quite as puffy as the gathers, but pleats are just not a style preference that I really like. So this really does seem to be working though. The pattern matching I got to be pretty close. I mean, I could fix that a little bit. I got better as I had to do it a couple times to kind of make it work, but it's not enough to be distracting when it's on. So I'm pretty sure that it will be fine. I just have to kind of cut the pieces and make them not as wide, following the lines that are already there style-wise for the skirt. We'll see how that works, but right now it's kind of fun just like fitting it. It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I just like needed to mentally prepare myself for attacking this dress. All right, the backpack. I'm so happy with how this turned out. This is the Range backpack, a pattern by Noodlehead. I saw Dawn and Callie's first, and Dawn and Callie is somebody I follow on Instagram. Dawn, hi Dawn. She made one as a gift for somebody, and I fell in love with hers immediately and just like bought the pattern that same night. This pattern did not disappoint. I have made a few modifications that I will go over with you, but just to kind of go over the whole thing from start to finish. Pattern was wonderful. Instructions, very clear. I will say that it doesn't give you any pattern pieces in the pattern itself because all the pieces are rectangles. So you're basically just like, cut one rectangle that's 16 by 9, cut one rectangle that's 11 by 14, and I'm just like making up those numbers. I have no idea if that was in the pattern or not, but that's kind of how the pattern works. There are no actual pattern pieces. You have to measure everything out. There are quite a few pattern pieces for this if you do not make it in canvas. If you make it in canvas, it probably cuts down the pattern piece amount by half, I would say. Otherwise, you're looking at like somewhere in like the 50 pieces category, because not only do you have to cut out the pieces themselves for the actual backpack, you also have to cut out the pieces for the lining. You have to cut out the pieces for the interfacing that are the same size as the pieces so that you're interfacing the pieces of the backpack. Using the canvas, I would highly recommend, just because it cuts down that prep time so much, and it's also, in my opinion, going to be more durable than if you buy like a cotton and interface all of the pieces, for example. I got my canvas, it's a waxed canvas, from A.L. Francis Textiles, and that's an Etsy shop. I don't do full-on show notes because all of my projects are detailed on my Ravelry pages, like pretty extensively and detailed, but I always do like a thread in my Ravelry group for episode notes so people can leave their questions. I'll leave a link to A.L. Francis Textiles. I really could not recommend this fabric quality highly enough. I mean, it arrived super fast. There are tons of color options. You can do waxed or not waxed, and it's hand waxed with beeswax. And the smell, it smells like honey when you get it. I don't know, it doesn't still smell like that, so that smell kind of wears off if that bothers you. So I mean, sitting in my apartment, it didn't smell like that by the time I got to sewing it, it did not smell like that. But it came wrapped in this brown paper, and it had a sticker that said like "Save the Bees" on it. I don't know, I just felt really good about where I purchased this from. And I got the idea from a lot of other people who have also made the Range backpack, who also bought their fabric from A.L. Francis Textiles. So I'm not, being endorsed to tell you this at all. I just had such a great experience using it that to me, it's like what made the project such a success. and honestly makes it look like so professional. And if you're on the fence about waxed versus not waxed fabric, there are a few reasons why I think the waxed is better. Number one, it looks like more distressed over time, which may be something you don't like, but it is something I definitely do like, especially as I use this every single day. Literally have used this every single day since I finished it. So it gets a lot of wear and tear being around New York City on the subway. It's on the ground, it's like slung over my back, it's, you know, thrown on the ground with my stuff. It just gets a lot of wear and tear, and I was nervous that if I tried to do something with like a more polished fabric, that it would just look beat up over time. So why not go for a fabric that just kind of makes it look distressed from the get-go, which you might not be able to see as much. I can't really tell if that's what you're seeing, but I would definitely recommend the waxed canvas for that reason. Another reason is that this it's kind of hard to describe until you're making the pattern itself, but a lot of the seam allowances or things that it tells you to do, it requires like, you know, turn it up 1/4 of an inch, turn it up 1/2 of an inch, and then stitch, or, you know, something like that. The waxed canvas makes it to where you don't have to press or iron any of it. You can literally just fold it over, push it down, and it molds to that for you already, which was a dream again while actually making it. I cannot imagine trying to make this backpack without a malleable fabric that would just hold its shape when you push, you know, when you fold it over the edges on it. It just made making this backpack such a great experience overall. Let's see, modifications. Okay, so I did make a few. For starters, cats. They're not being very good right now. Kitties, stop. For starters, I did make it bigger. So I made it 1 inch taller. So all the pieces that were, I guess you kind of just have to look at the pattern to see. I mean, obviously I can't give you specific dimensions. I don't want to give away too much of a paid for pattern, but I did make the backpack 1 inch taller just to make sure it could accommodate my laptop, which was the main thing that I was concerned about when making this. Is I wanted to make it an everyday backpack for use, and I had to make sure that it could hold my laptop. It does hold my laptop, and comfortably so. If it was shorter, I won't say that it wouldn't fit, but I definitely could not get other things in there nearly as easily. The second thing that I did was I added, it's gonna be hard to show you this because it's gonna be dark in here, but I did add a sleeve. I don't think you can see, yeah, okay, you can kind of see it. So that is not in the backpack instructions, to have this sleeve in here. Basically the way I did that was I cut 2 of the back piece, 2 of the main back piece here, sewed it together like a pocket, and then treated that as if it was one. So treated that back piece as if it was, treated the pocket plus back piece as if it was just the main back piece. So that required a little bit of pre-planning. The purpose of that was so that I could have a sleeve to hold my laptop. Unfortunately, the laptop doesn't fit in there and close because the pocket kind of sits too far up. It doesn't hit the bottom of the backpack. However, if I would make this again, I would still make the sleeve because I have found it so useful for other things like holding papers, or when I took it out of town to Philadelphia that following weekend that I made it, it was good for holding like my toiletries or the socks or, you know, whatever. Having a sleeve or a pocket in there has been super, super functionally useful, and I would definitely recommend making that modification if it's something that you think you would use, because I use it all the time in my current backpack. Next modification is that this closure right here on the original backpack, I'll insert a picture of it so you can see, is kind of like a thread up through and then thread down below. That's just not practical for everyday use for me. It's kind of annoying. I needed something that I could get in and out really quickly, like close and unclose really fast. So I ended up attaching this bottom D-ring, which came in a pack of hardware that I purchased from Noodlehead. And in that package of hardware came these 2 rectangles, 2 D-rings, and then these 2 sliders right here, along with this leather loop as well. That might have been a separate, no, yeah, the leather loop came with it. So that came in with like the hardware for the range backpack that you can buy from Noodlehead. I used this D-ring to kind of put it on a loop. And then rather than making one straight piece that would go down, thread through the loop, and have to thread up through something else, I think it was another D-ring, I bought this lobster claw in the garment district that's attached to a D-ring, put it on a loop, and now all I have to do to close it is just push the lobster claw through and it's done. It's fast, it's simple. This is a modification I knew I would make from the get-go just because I didn't want any faffing with a strap threading that through. It would just take too long to get in and out of and to close when I'm on the go, or, you know, to get into my knitting when I'm on the subway. It's just too much. So that was, I knew, a mod I would make right away that I would definitely do over and over again. So that's how that turned out. All of the hardware is kind of like a burnished brass color. It all matches, with the exception of the zipper, which is bright gold, but all of the rest of it is kind of like this burnished brass color. And I would have bought a burnished gold zipper if I could find one to match, but I mean, I still like how this looks. But that wasn't an option when I went to the garment district, which is where I got this zipper here. This calls for, I think, a 9-inch zipper across here. I can't remember what it is. It will say in the pattern. But I bought a red one to match the red canvas. There's a little pocket in there. That's part of the pattern, not a modification. And I got like a pretty heavy duty zipper because this is, you know, something that you want to like be able to just like grab and use really easily. One modification I still want to make that I have not done yet is I want to put in a zip along the top. Just in New York City, I mean, I will say the first day that I used it for work, it rained so hard and my laptop was honestly fine. It was not the slightest bit wet when I got to work just by the fold over, but it will just make me feel more secure to have the zipper along the top, just because you just gotta be smart, you know, when you live in a big city about, you know, people unclipping your backpack and stealing stuff out of it. You just never know, you know, it's just better to be safe than sorry. Don't tempt people with it. I really still want to get a zipper to close it. The last modification that I made, and that's probably the biggest one that I did, was the straps. So I'll try to insert another picture to show you of the straps. So I know a lot of you were curious because I was trying to decide between using, where did I put it? Using the nylon webbing or using the fabric for the backpack. And by the way, I eked out my entire backpack with 1 yard purchased from the A.L. Francis Textiles, and this is what I have left. You have to be kind of clever with your pattern piece placement, but I made it work. So a lot of you were curious what strap decision I ended up making, and I was between the nylon webbing for the entire thing or the fabric, and I ended up doing a combination of both, which is the same thing that I had for my previous backpack that I had before I started using this one. So I went with this model of strap for a few reasons. The fabric obviously would be a more comfortable choice than the nylon webbing, which I thought would probably dig into my back and my shoulders a bit too much. Also, these straps are wider than what the pattern calls for. I believe the pattern calls for straps that are like 1.25 inches wide or something like that. To me, that was too thin. Because the less wide the strap is, the more it will dig into your back. So I modeled it again after my current backpack, and I believe these straps are somewhere in like the 1.75 to 2 inches realm width. So you'll see if you make the pattern, but basically I just folded in the straps less than it called for and made the strap wider overall. Really glad I did that. The straps are super, super comfortable. And then the straps as written in the pattern, again, similar to like this sort of thing in the pattern where it wants you to like thread it through and have the strap tightener be like up here on you, which is kind of difficult to adjust while you're wearing the backpack. unlike this model, which is something I really liked about my old backpack, I inserted the nylon strap into the little side holder. This is part of the pattern. And then made a little tab of the nylon webbing, inserted that into the bottom of the fabric strap, really zigzagged over that to secure that in there, and then used the rectangle sliders that were part of the Noodlehead kit to then thread the nylon up, down, and through it. And that makes it so that as you're wearing it, you can adjust the backpack really easily as you're wearing it to be tighter or not as tight while it's actually on your body. Whereas if the strap tighteners were up here, it's like not as easy to like modify it on the go. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're wearing something that's like particularly heavy, you kind of want to make it a little bit tighter so that it's higher on your back and therefore not putting as much strain on your back. Just different situations where you want to have your straps be tighter or not as tight. So I think having the adjustments down lower is very easy to adjust versus being up here and having to like use two hands at the same time. I love how these straps turned out. The only thing that I might try to do differently next time is that even though I made them out of the fabric, they're still pretty thin. I mean, they're canvas, so it's fine, but if I could find a way to like pad them, that would be the ultimate, like primo. But I really have no clue how to do that. Maybe I would insert a padding layer into the strap. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look into it. But if I did make this backpack again, then I would look into seeing if I could somehow pad the strap. But even without the padding, it's super, super comfortable, especially with the adjustment to the width of the strap. Total game changer. Something else I want to mention, Dawn and Callie followed up. She knew I was making this backpack, so Dawn followed up with me saying that the strap on her backpack, on one of the straps, came out really easily because the instructions tell you to only insert it into this kind of area, like 1/2 inch or something like that, and that she would definitely recommend inserting the strap a full inch at least into the backpack. So I definitely did that. I pretty much put it as low down here as it would go and just sewed the hell out of it to secure it. I was very like nervous at first to use it with any sort of weight in it whatsoever because I was scared the straps would just rip right out based on what she told me, but so far it's been fine. Two signs of wear and tear that I see so far. I'm not overly impressed with this leather handle. I believe it's real leather. I got it from Noodlehead. I'm not overly impressed with it. I've only had it for a week. It has been exposed to pretty heavy rains, but it's already kind of like fraying a little bit on the edge, which I'm not sure if that's what all leather will do. I don't know. I'm not like overly impressed with the way that it's wearing after only 1 week of use. And then the other thing is that one of my straps, I've just noticed already today, has started ripping horizontally into the center. It stopped at where the seam is and where the stitching is, so I don't know if it's going to go any further, but I do probably need to get some needle and thread and really kind of like hand sew that to reinforce it to keep it from getting worse. I'm not really sure why it's doing that, and it's not, let's see, is it doing it on my side I would, no it's not. So it's not even doing it on the side that I would normally hold my backpack, the strap that I would use the most. It's on my non-dominant backpack side. So I'm not really sure why that's happening, but that's kind of the first sign that I'm seeing after only a week of using it, so that's a bit of a disappointment. Not sure why, but yeah, I might be looking into to kind of get a sense of like the stress of where these straps are located for the backpack tension. I don't know, but overall, super, super happy with this project. I really, really like it. Like I said, I'm still going to insert a zipper into the top. Just kind of have to figure out how to do that. But all of the modifications I made, I really do recommend. Everything that I did to change it has really helped me use the backpack to its full potential and the way that I know I want to use it. So I would 10 out of 10 recommend this pattern. Definitely, yeah, I would definitely recommend this pattern. I would especially also recommend the A.L. Francis textiles. I really do think that that was what pushed this project over the top in terms of professionalism, quality, experience sewing it. Oh, definitely get yourself some heavy duty needles when you're sewing this project. I was a little bit concerned about my machine, and that thing is a tank, but I broke 3 needles while making this pattern. Eventually I wised up and used a little screwdriver to really make sure that the needle was screwed in tightly, because if it's not, it will just like the fabric will pull it right out. And I'm not sure if that's the wax in the canvas or just the canvas itself. I don't really know, but definitely make sure your needles are screwed in really tight, and also get a whole pack of them, because you'll probably go through a few when you're making this. And you'll want to change it out too, because the sharper the needle, the easier the sewing is. Somebody did recommend a Microtex needle, which I did not get, but apparently that's going to be really good for kind of the trickier fabrics, like sewing over the nylon webbing, which my machine really did not like doing. But other than that, I will say it wasn't a difficult make in terms of like understanding the instructions. That was simple. It was more just like kind of challenging, like wrangling the fabric and sewing through all those layers on the machine in like a slow, steady way. That was really the tough part about this project. And after I was finished, I was like, whew, I just like want to give my machine a hug right now, because I feel like I've put it through so much and it's come out on the other side and made me this beautiful backpack. But I really did worry about the machine for a little bit there, not gonna lie. So yeah, be prepared with extra sewing needles, oil up that machine, give it some love and care, be slow and steady with it. Don't try to like zip on through with this, because it just will not work out well for you in the end. But yep, this is the Range backpack. Again, a pattern by Noodlehead, and I would really recommend it. Okay, really quick, because I literally keep forgetting to do this for like the past 2 months now or so. Sorry about the change in lighting, but it won't matter, because what I'm talking to you about, I could put pictures in on the screen. There have been 2 pattern donations in particular that I'm sure you guys have heard of them, but I really, really want to promote them and do the giveaway on the podcast, because I just think they're amazing. And then one additional one that was not donated, but a pattern that I really love and really want to support, because I just think it's really great. So the first one, the Cyril socks by Danny George of Little Bobbins. She donated a copy of her sock pattern, and I definitely want to be able to give one of these away. The sock pattern is absolutely gorgeous. I really cannot wait to knit a pair. Like the next time I knit a vanilla sock for somebody that isn't like a sock design or socks on a plane or something like that, that's definitely the next one on my list. So I'll put in a picture here for you to see. It's a gorgeous pattern, a really wonderful story that goes along with it. So that one is up for grabs. The second one is Mina Phillip, the Knitting Expat, her Mix and Match sweater. This one she released a while ago, but it is seriously such a great, like an amazing basic sweater pattern. I could not like let this go by one more episode without mentioning it, and also doing a giveaway for that pattern. I'll put in a picture of it here. I just love the versatility of the pattern. You could knit it cropped, you could knit it tunic length like the sample, you could knit it with the stitch pattern or without the textured stitch pattern. I just think, like the name would suggest, mix and match cardigan, it is just such a versatile, usable, wearable piece that my style and aesthetic, I could not mention it. So that's the second one that's up for grabs. The third one, which was not donated to the podcast, but I'm still going to purchase a copy of it and give it away because I love the idea behind it so much, is the Humblebee sock pattern by Sarah Pomegranate, who has the Yarns at Yin Hu podcast. A stunning pattern that is inspired by bees, and my mom and I sort of just have like this bee thing. I'm actually terrified of them, but I love them and want to make sure that they don't go extinct, and a percentage of the pattern sales of the Humblebee socks are donated to like Bees, I don't want to say Bees Foundation, but some sort of charity that makes sure that, you know, helps bees stay, I don't want to say stay alive. I don't know the right words I'm looking for, but you know what I'm trying to say. It somehow donates money to saving the bees in some way. And I just think that's a wonderful cause. And the pattern itself is just adorable. So I'll insert a picture of that here. The sample was knit in Sweet Sparrow yarns also, which of course I love since I'm like the Sweet Sparrow yarns #1 fangirl. But if you have a chance to purchase that sock, if you don't win, I would highly recommend it. I think it's a wonderful charity opportunity, and the sock itself is beautiful. I love the texture on it. I love the bees at the back of the sock in the middle. I just think it's like a lovely touch. So sterile socks, mix and match sweater, and the Humblebee socks. If you would like to enter to win a copy of one of those patterns, the cereal socks, the mix and match sweater, or the Humblebee socks, comment down below with which pattern you would like to win. I will draw for a winner. So for example, I'll draw for the cereal socks, and then whichever person comes up first that wants the cereal socks will get the cereal socks. Then I'll draw for the mix and match sweater, and then I'll keep drawing until I get to the first person who wants the mix and match sweater, etc., etc. So you're going to win the pattern that you actually want to have. If it doesn't matter to you which pattern, then you could put any of them down below. Whatever works for you. I'm just going to keep making sure that we don't have like, so that everybody wins at least one of the, so that we can make sure that each of the patterns gets awarded, is what I'm trying to say. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I know I didn't have like a ton to share with you. It's just that backpack took up a lot of my time. This weekend I am going to the Farm and Fiber tour in upstate New York in Washington County. I'm so excited. It is like my favorite fiber event ever. Sarah of the Yarns at Yinhu podcast, she normally organizes it. She'll be attending this year, but somebody else helped her organize. I cannot wait to go. It's just like a retreat full of meeting the local farmers of Washington County. Every year it's like a tradition for me to buy a sweater quantity. Hi Mika. She hardly ever says hello. Every year it's like a tradition for me to buy a sweater quantity of what I lovingly call nun-spun yarn, because there is one of the farms, St. Mary's on the Hill, which is where me and the other kind of fellow retreat members, we stay at a lodge in St. Mary's on the Hill. They have a lot of spinning as part of their practice, and every year I have bought a sweater's quantity of yarn from them. So the first year I bought a Cormo sweater quantity and I made the Brookings sweater with that, and then the second year I bought a gorgeous BFL yarn and I made the Laurel cardigan out of that, and that is by far like my favorite and most used sweater to date. I love the Laurel cardigan. I get so much wear out of that, but I'm so excited. Hopefully I can continue the tradition of buying a nun-spun sweater quantity of yarn. We'll see what it is that they have though. So I'm so excited about that. I'm going up there with Julie, and of course we're gonna have a magical time. And yeah, other than that, life stuff. I went to Philadelphia last weekend for the first time. What a great city. I loved it so much. The Barnes Foundation, it's an art museum. It's so eclectic and quirky. I posted about it on Instagram. If you are in the area, I would highly recommend checking out the Barnes Foundation Museum, the Philadelphia Art Museum. We biked everywhere, ate Philly cheesesteaks. It was just a really, really great time. And the weather was like in the 70s on Saturday, the Saturday that we went. It was just, I could not have asked for a better time. It was really, really great. Saw a Sixers playoff game, which is like my boyfriend's team. So now I'm like roped in as a Sixers fan, which is kind of nice because I've always really liked basketball, but I didn't really have a team to follow that much, so it's nice to like have a team again, so that's really fun. All right, I'm rambling now. I will let you guys go. Take care, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!